Okay, so let's unpack something that I think a lot of us carry around, maybe without even realizing it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like this heavy, invisible backpack that almost every parent straps on the exact moment they leave the hospital with a newborn, just packed with this persistent anxiety that we are somehow uh, already behind.
Yeah, that creeping feeling of failing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if we aren't playing Mozart in the nursery or buying those high contrast flashcards or teaching sign language at 3 months old, we are just completely failing our kids.
I mean, it's the industrial complex of modern parenting, right? It tells us that learning is a product you buy or a place you go. It's a really common cultural script we all just sort of accept.
We totally do.
We tend to outsource the idea of education to institutions. We think of it as something that happens at a desk with a teacher standing at the front of the room. And until that happens, we're just kind of waiting around.
Exactly. We have this ingrained idea that real learning, like capital L learning, starts when the kid walks into a kindergarten classroom, sits at a desk, and looks at a teacher. You buy the backpack, you sharpen the pencils, and bam, education begins.
But that's just not how human development works.
It's not. And today, we are diving into a guide that completely flips that script.
Yeah.
It takes that whole idea and just shreds it.
It really does. And it doesn't just tear it down, it replaces it with something much more empowering and, frankly, much more scientifically grounded.
So what are we looking at today?
We are doing a deep dive into a guide titled I Am My Child's First Teacher. And specifically, we're looking at week 1, which centers on confidence and language.
And just to set the stage for you listening at home, this isn't some dense academic paper on neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah.
Or a textbook on child psychology, because I think we've all got enough of those on our nightstands just collecting dust.
Oh, definitely not. It's actually a very practical roadmap. It's a guide designed for the actual trenches of parenthood. The mission here is pretty clear, and it's not to turn parents into professors.
Thank goodness.
Right, it's to relieve that exact pressure we were just talking about. It's about showing parents that the natural interactions they are already having, the mundane stuff like folding laundry or cooking dinner, are actually the building blocks of their child's brain.
Which is such a massive relief, because honestly, when I saw the title First Teacher, I immediately panicked. I thought, great, now I need a lesson plan. Do I need a whiteboard in the nursery? I mean, I don't know how to write a curriculum.
And that's exactly the anxiety this guide tries to dismantle. It's not about doing more, it's about a shift in perspective.
Okay, so a mindset shift.
Exactly. It's recognizing the power in what you're already doing anyway. It's basically saying to you, you don't need to change your life, you just need to change how you see your life.
I love that. So let's get right into it. Section 1 of our deep dive today is all about this identity shift. The document opens with a pretty bold statement. It says, "Mother, before your child ever enters a classroom, learning has already begun with you."
It creates a totally new hierarchy immediately. It centers the parent, specifically the mother in this text, though obviously it applies to any primary caregiver, as the architect.
The architect of their learning.
Yes, and it's important to look at how it says this learning happens, because it's not through lectures. It's not through drilling facts with flashcards. The text specifies very clearly. It's your voice, your touch, and your presence.
It actually says long before letters or numbers, the child learns by watching, which honestly is a little terrifying if you think about how often we're just autopiloting through the day. I mean, half the time I'm just trying to survive until bedtime.
Sure, it can feel that way. But think about the flip side of that. It means you don't need special equipment. You don't need to buy anything.
That's true.
The source points out that they are watching how you speak, how you listen, and how you respond. It highlights that care and patience are actually the first lessons a child learns.
So if I drop a carton of milk on the kitchen floor and I take a deep breath instead of screaming, that's a lesson.
According to this guide, absolutely. In fact, that might be a much more important lesson than the ABCs.
Really?
Yes, because in that moment, you are teaching emotional regulation. You are teaching resilience. The guide argues that because you know your child best, your teaching meets their needs in a way no one else can.
That's a really empowering distinction. But it's not saying that school teachers aren't important, right? I don't want to get us in trouble with the teachers union here.
Right, no, and the guide addresses that directly. It says teachers at school will eventually bring structure, knowledge, and support. But, and this is the key connection for us today, they're building on the foundation you have already started at home.
Ah, I see.
If that foundation isn't there, the structure is a lot harder to build.
It's like the parent is pouring the concrete, and the school frames the house later. You can't frame a house on mud.
That's a great analogy. And the concrete in this scenario, It's simply being present. The text literally says, by being present, loving, and engaged, you are teaching every day.
Okay, so we have the philosophy down.
Yeah.
We are the architects. We pour the concrete. But what are we actually teaching in this first week? Because the guide has a very specific focus here: confidence and language.
Yes, and the big idea, the central thesis of week 1, is a simple phrase. Talking builds your child's brain.
Talking builds the brain. This is where we get into the core mechanism of the deep dive. It's a technique the guide calls talking out loud or sharing life.
Yes, sharing life.
Sharing life. I mean, it sounds poetic, almost romantic. But let's get concrete with this. Because talk your child sounds easy on paper, but if you've ever spent 8 hours alone in a house with a pre-verbal toddler, the conversation can get a little
One-sided.
very one-sided. It feels weird.
It can feel incredibly weird. And that's exactly why the guide is so specific about how to do this. It's not about having a debate with a 2-year-old or teaching them dictionary definitions. It's simply about narrating life.
Narrating life.
Right. It's about bridging the gap between the child's lived experience and the language used to describe it.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in practice? Because I'm picturing myself just walking around the house talking to myself like a crazy person. Like I'm walking to the fridge, I am opening the fridge is cold.
Well, in a way, you are doing exactly that, but with a real purpose. The guide gives some very specific, mundane examples to ground this concept. Let's look at the hand washing example they use.
Hand washing.
Yeah, it doesn't say go to the zoo and describe a giraffe to your kid. It stays right in your own bathroom.
Okay, walk me through the bathroom example.
The guide suggests saying something like this. We are washing your hands. The water is warm. Your hands are clean.
That's it. The water is warm.
That's it. But think deeply about what's happening there. The child feels a physical sensation on their skin. They don't know what to call that sensation. And you say, warm.
Oh, wow.
Click. You just mapped a piece of reality for them. You connected the physical world they're experiencing to a linguistic symbol.
It creates a script for their reality.
Exactly. You are giving them the code. Here's another one from the text regarding getting dressed.
Getting dressed is usually a nightmare, so I'm all ears.
Right. Well, it suggests saying this. We are putting on your shirt. This is your blue shirt. First, your head goes through the hole. Now your arm goes in.
It's so simple, but I can actually see how that's totally different from just silently shoving a t-shirt over a squirming kid's head. Because usually, dressing a toddler is like wrestling an octopus.
Precisely. If you are silently wrestling, it's just a struggle. But if you are narrating it, it becomes a shared activity. You are involving them in the process.
You're bringing them into it.
Yes. And notice the rules the guide sets out for this technique. First, use your own words. Second, speak slowly and naturally.
And the third rule, because this is the one that really stopped me in my tracks when I was reading it.
Yes, the third rule is really important. It is, you do not need to ask questions.
Oh, thank goodness. Because I feel like there's this immense pressure to constantly quiz kids. What color is this? What's that animal? Can you say cow?
Yeah.
I honestly thought that was how they learned.
It is a very common misconception. We think quizzing is teaching. But the guide explicitly says, just talk. The goal isn't to test them.
It's not a test.
No. The goal is to help the child learn how words and ideas work. It's about exposure, not interrogation.
But isn't asking questions good? I mean, doesn't it check if they actually understand what you're saying?
It checks them, yes. But for a child who is just learning language, constant questioning can actually induce anxiety. It puts them on the spot. It demands a performance from them.
I never thought about it like that.
Imagine if you were learning a new language, say Mandarin, and every time I pointed at a table, I said, what is this? Say it. Say table in Mandarin right now.
Oh, I'd shut down completely. I'd be terrified to get it wrong.
Exactly. Sharing life feels much less performative than teaching vocabulary. When you just talk, you're creating a safe, low-stakes environment where language just flows over them. You aren't demanding a performance.
That makes so much sense. Now, speaking of confidence, the guide pivots to something really interesting here. We've been talking mostly about words, blue shirt, warm water. But Section 3 of our source highlights that the parent is also the first teacher of values.
This is a crucial layer to the whole concept. It's so easy to just focus on the cognitive stuff, the vocabulary words. But the guide emphasizes that through your everyday actions, the child learns kindness, honesty, respect, and responsibility.
It's that idea of modeling again.
Yeah.
But how do you narrate values? It's not as physical as a blue shirt or warm water.
You narrate the invisible. It ties directly back to emotional intelligence. One of the suggestions for talking out loud isn't just about objects in the room, it's about feelings.
Feelings.
Yes, the text suggests saying things like, "You are smiling, you look happy."
So you're labeling the emotion for
Yeah.
them.
Yes. You're giving them the vocabulary for their internal state. That is the very beginning of emotional regulation. You're teaching them to identify what is happening inside their own bodies. Because if they can eventually say, "I am mad," they are much less likely to express that madness by biting someone.
I love how the guide frames this around resilience, too. It mentions what happens when a child struggles with something. Because my immediate instinct as a parent is to jump in and fix it. If they can't button their shirt, I want to do it for them so we can get out the door.
That's the classic fixer instinct. We all have it. But the text says, when your child struggles, your reassurance teaches strength and persistence.
So instead of fixing the button, I narrate the struggle. Like you were trying so hard to push that button through the hole.
Exactly. You validate the effort they're putting in. You teach them that struggling isn't a sign of failure. It's just part of the process of learning something new.
Right.
And conversely, the text 6 says, when your child succeeds, your praise builds self-belief.
It's completely reframing the parent's role from fixer to supporter. And there's a note here about repetition that I found really fascinating. You know that phase where a kid asks why to everything, or asks for the exact same story or the same question 500 times in a row?
The phase that tests every single parent's sanity, the read it again phase?
Yes, that exact one. I usually just think of that as annoying behavior that I'd simply have to survive. But the guide actually has a totally different take on it.
It does. It says when you answer those questions, especially the same ones asked again and again, you are teaching curiosity and trust.
Trust. That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the actual answer to the question about why the sky is blue. It's about the fact that I'm still here answering you.
Exactly. The consistent response tells the child, my questions matter. You are listening to me. I can rely on you. That is a massive lesson in trust, disguised as a really annoying repetitive game.
Wow.
If you snap and say, because I said so, stop asking, you break that loop. You teach them that their curiosity has a strict limit.
So we've got the identity shift, we've got the narration technique, and we've got the emotional connection. But now we really have to talk about implementation. Because I know you listeners, you are busy, you are tired, and adding narrate my entire existence to your to-do list just sounds exhausting.
And the guide anticipates that overwhelmed parent persona perfectly. It lowers the barrier to entry significantly. It says explicitly, even a few minutes a day makes a difference.
A few minutes. Okay, I feel like anyone can do a few minutes.
The week 1 challenge in the guide is literally this. Talk out loud to your child for 5 minutes every day. That's it.
5 minutes. That's less time than I spend scrolling social media while hiding in the bathroom.
Probably. And it suggests tying it to activities you're already doing anyway. You don't have to set aside special lesson time. It lists getting dressed, eating a meal, walking outside, or cleaning and cooking.
So I don't have to stop cooking dinner to teach. I teach while I cook dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I am chopping the carrots. The carrots are orange. Into the pot they go.
Exactly. You just bring them into your world. And there is a phrase in the text that is actually bolded, and I think we need to highlight it for everyone listening today. It says, it does not have to be perfect. It only has to be consistent.
It does not have to be perfect. That needs to be on a bumper sticker or like a tattoo.
It's the perfect trap. We think if we aren't doing it like a Pinterest parent, or if we sound tired, or if we miss a day, we're completely failing. But the guide insists there is no right or wrong way to do this. It's purely about the effort of connection.
I think that's why this approach is so sustainable. It's asking for consistency, not perfection. But naturally, if I'm putting in this effort, even just 5 minutes a day, I want to know if it's actually working. How do we measure success here?
This is where we have to redefine our metrics entirely. We are so conditioned to look for what I call loud progress.
Loud progress. What does that mean?
You know the type. The big, obvious milestones. Can they read? Can they count to 10? Can they recite the alphabet for grandma at Thanksgiving? The stuff you can record on video and post online?
Like the highlight reel.
But the guide focuses on what it calls quiet progress. It says progress shows up in small, quiet ways, especially in these early stages of development.
So what are we actually looking for? If they aren't reciting Shakespeare in the living room, what's the sign that this is working?
It gives a really helpful checklist of signs. In the child, you want to look for things like, are they looking at you when you talk? Are they smiling, pointing, or responding in some way? Are they making sounds or trying to say words back to you?
Okay, so just engagement, participating in the feedback loop.
And proximity. The text says stays close or listens longer. That's a major sign of success. If your child is just sitting near you,
Yeah.
listening to your voice while you narrate popping the carrots, data transfer is happening.
That is so freeing.
But what I find really insightful is that the guide also lists signs of progress in the parent.
Oh, interesting. So I'm checking my own progress too.
Yes, it asks you to notice your own behavior. Are you talking more naturally? Do you feel more confident? Are you finding moments to talk during routines that used to be completely silent?
That's a great point. Because if I'm feeling less awkward about narrating my life, that means the habit is sticking. I'm actively becoming a better teacher.
Exactly. And the guide provides a daily check-in tool to help with this. It's incredibly simple. It's just a checkbox that says, did I talk out loud? And then you select options for 1 to 2 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, or more.
And there's a one-sentence reflection too, right?
Yes, it asks you to finish this sentence. Today, when I talked to my child, I noticed, and then a blank space.
I like that it forces you to pause and actually observe.
Mm-hmm.
Because the days blur together so fast when you have a toddler. If you don't stop to write down, I noticed he pointed at the dog today, you might completely miss that it was a moment of connection. You might forget it by dinner time.
And that leads right to the final, most important reminder in the measurement section. It says, you are not measuring your child, you are measuring connection and effort.
That's a huge distinction. We aren't grading the baby.
We are definitely not grading the baby. We are simply noticing that the line of communication between you is open and active.
Progress is not loud. That's a line from the text that really stuck with me. It grows through small, loving moments.
It's a beautiful summary of the whole philosophy. It takes all the pressure off the final result and puts the focus entirely on the relationship itself.
So looking ahead, the guide teases that next week is about telling stories without books, which sounds like a real challenge for those of us who rely entirely on the pictures to know what to say.
It does, but it builds perfectly on the foundation of this week. Once you're comfortable narrating the present, the warm water, the blue shirt, the orange carrots, you can start narrating the imagination. But for this week, the focus remains right here, right now.
So to recap our mission for this deep dive, you don't need a teaching degree, you don't need a pricey curriculum, you don't need the perfect aesthetic educational toys.
You just need to be there. You are already the teacher. Every single time you speak to them with love, their brain grows.
And remember, there is no right or wrong way. Just take a deep breath and talk.
Simple as that.
Before we sign off today, we always like to leave you with a thought to chew on. Something that takes this source material and pushes it just a little bit further, maybe applies it to the rest of our lives.
We talked a lot about measurement today. The guide tells us you are not measuring your child. But it really makes me wonder about our own adult lives. We're so used to measuring our own progress by big, loud milestones, promotions, grades, awards, viral posts.
The adult highlight reel. We always want the applause.
Exactly. But if we apply this first teacher philosophy to ourselves, if real progress is actually not loud, if it's about connection and consistency and small daily efforts, what quiet moments of success are you missing in your own life right now, simply because you're waiting for a round of applause that might never come?
Ooh, that is a really good one. Are we missing the connection with our partners, our friends, or even with ourselves because we're too busy looking for the next big milestone?
It's definitely worth thinking about. Maybe the warm water moments are actually enough.
I think they are. Thanks for diving in with us today. Go wash your hands, tell yourself the water is warm, and we'll see you next time.